Every once in a while, a book comes along that reveals to you just how ignorant you really are. That was this book for me. Now, someone asked me in one of my education groups, what was the best way to teach culture? And I thought about that. The best way to teach culture is from somebody who's from that culture. Marjane Satrapi's Complete Persepolis. It tells a story of a 10-year-old girl who grows up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. Her world is radically changed. How did I find out about this book? I was introduced to the Complete Persepolis in college. I was taking an English 200 class, and one of my favorite professors now, he introduced us to this book. Now, what sticks out about this book is that it's an autobiographical story told in a graphic novel form. So as you can see here, there's pictures, and it's all illustrated and written by Marjane Satrapi. If you read Mouse by Art Spiegelman in school, you'll really enjoy this book because it's very similar in the way that it took a story that is quite tragic, but the illustrations give it a lighthearted feeling so that you can still come to terms with the reality and the gravity of what happened, but still read through it in a lighthearted and charming way. After reading this book and watching the film, I became a huge fan. Why do I recommend this book? While the illustrations and humor of the book add charm, it doesn't take away from the tragic stuff that happens in the book. She and her family endured some terrible things while the Islamic Revolution was going on, and she witnessed her beloved uncle being taken to prison and executed, and she had to be shipped away to a foreign country for her own safety. There's a lot of things like that in this book that really make you realize how severe the reality of living is for some people there. For example, there's a part of the book called The Key. In it, she says, "The key to paradise was for poor people. Thousands of young kids were promised better life, exploded in the minefields with their keys around their neck." It's a coming-of-age story, too. We see her go from her 10 years of age in the beginning of the book and flowering into adulthood during her teenage years in Vienna, and then coming back home to Iran as a grown woman who is still suffering. We also see themes of feminism, social coercion, communism, and an identity crisis. From beginning to end, Satrapi takes you through a roller coaster of suspense that is her life story. It almost claimed her life. She had to be sent to a foreign country to be saved from persecution she was suffering. This book will erase any preconceived notions you have about Iran and replace it with a first-hand perspective of the realities going on over there. How this book affected me. In 2009, Chimamanda Adichie gave a TED Talk called "The Danger of a Single Story," in which she talked about how people perceived her as poor, starving, and uncivilized because she was African, but she actually came from a wealthy family who had servants. She warns about making a broad generalization over a people group based on stereotypes and representation by the media. After the events of September 11, the media began stigmatizing people from the Middle East as terrorists. In recent years, the table have turned to where now a lot of them are being represented as martyrs and fugitives. This book will open your eyes to somebody who's lived through it, from that region, grown up in the culture, and you'll find we're not very different at all. I could relate to Marjane and her identity crisis growing up, and her convictions of faith. She wasn't some far-off person from a foreign country. No, she felt so real to me, a human being struggling to fit in a society that demanded of her what she knew in her heart wasn't right. Take, for example, these quotes from the book. "We didn't really like to wear the veil, especially since we didn't understand why we had to. I really didn't know what to think about the veil. Deep down, I was very religious, but as a family, we were very modern and avant-garde." While the media would have you fear anybody in a hijab or a turban, the reality is we're not so different after all. A lot of them are struggling with their faith just the same, and a lot of them don't agree with the terrorism being produced from those parts of the world. There's terrorism everywhere, and we really don't know a person until we take the time to know their story. It's a great book, and in 2007 it was made into a feature film, so if you don't like reading books, then watch the movie. It's worth it. You'll learn to get to know people before you judge them. For my next video, I'm going to be going through Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, an antidote to chaos. If you feel like your life is in shambles, watch our video next time. I'll be going through some of the key takeaways from the book to see if this might be something helpful for you to read. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Lit with Fonz.